Hello and welcome to another episode of the Business of Business podcast. I'm Roy. Today we've got an awesome guest, just put out a new book. Zack Ballinger is a motivational speaker, author, and a career consultant. He's also a TEDx speaker and helps people find their career direction. He also teaches numerous career development topics, and he brings a passion for and that is contagious, and energy that is undeniably and innovative ideas that work in today's new complex world. Zack, thanks a lot and welcome to the show.
Thanks, Roy, for having me. It's certainly a pleasure.
You bet. I want to. The book is "Don't Be a Zombie: How to Find a Career You Love." So that is a wide-ranging topic. I'm sure we could talk for hours on that, but it's important for anybody of any age to think about that. I mean, we need to find that career where you want to get up on Monday morning and get out there and go to work. I mean, we spend the largest majority of our life at work, so why not find one that we feel passionate about and are happy with?
Yeah, Roy, this whole movement started with a TEDx talk, and it's amazing how it spread. So before the pandemic, I was traveling around teaching people about job interviewing, and most of the questions that students had or professionals had was, hey, how do I find a career that I love? Or, hey, I'm miserable in my career, but I'm going to continue on in it in 20 years. And so the pandemic hit, and I did my TED Talk, and I had about 2,000 viewers on it, and more people were interested in this whole concept of how you don't have to become a zombie. That phrase comes from that 70% of Americans right now in your audience out in the United States don't like their job.
Wow.
And to me, I found that very troubling, and the evidence supported that as I was traveling all over the United States and the world, that was certainly the case. And so then I decided, you know what, I'm going to take time and address this need in the marketplace and teach people how to find a career they love.
That's important. So I'm going to ask you, can you just say that statistic one more time, please? So I want people like, what did you just say?
Sure. It's a Gallup poll done. It was published in the USA Today. 153,000 American workers were surveyed, and 70% of them did not like their job.
And we can look at that from two perspectives. We can look at that from the point of view of the employee who, obviously they're going to a job they're not satisfied with, but we have to kind of flip that over and look at it from the employer's point of view, is that you've got 70% of your employees that aren't happy out there. That's a huge tell for me anyway.
Yeah, it's problematic because, a lot of my speeches, when they see Discover Your Passion, I talk about this in the book, that corporations would shy away from having me because they're like, well, we don't want people to read this book and leave us. And I said, no, that's not the attitude you need to have. If they're disengaged in their work, maybe we can find them either special projects, leadership development opportunities where they can excel in another role. I've met so many people in roles with companies that were in customer service, they were in sales, and they found their passion to be right in the company, but it was in a different area. And we're not developing them, people to move forward. So I think you're exactly right.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about it from the employee point of view for just a minute. And you told me a great story that I'm going to have you reiterate about the gentleman that wanted to open a restaurant. Could you just tell that story again, please?
Yeah, I was speaking at an event, and they came up to me afterwards. The names get muddled, but I think his name was Bob actually. And he came up to me and he said, I'm tired of my corporate job. I want to own my own restaurant. And I said, that's great. And we began to have a conversation. And I wanted to get the whole idea around his passion for being in business and the food industry. And he said, well, I'm very passionate about cooking. I've never run a restaurant. I've never worked inside one. And that automatically sent alarm bells off to me. And so some of my advice was, I said, why don't you take a week off, take your own vacation, network, and find somebody in the restaurant industry, shadow them. They probably would love the help. You can, lift boxes, do whatever you want, and they'll be happy to have you. And a few months later, he emailed me and we talked, and he said, Zack, thank you so much for the great idea. That was awesome. I really, it was a great learning experience. I decided what to do. And I was like, great. So where's your next location? What kind of restaurant are you going to open up?
Right.
He said, I do not want to own a restaurant. And I said, well, wait a minute. What happened? He said, well, I don't want to manage employees. I don't want to work with numbers. I don't want to worry about profits and profit margins. He said, I just want to cook.
Yeah.
And so the whole time his passion was not business, but it was cooking.
Right,
so what he
right.
decided to do is own his own one-man catering shop where he cooked mainly. And then his wife ran the finances, and he absolutely loves it.
I think that is so important for early career people coming out of college, or basically while you're still in college, or even those that are looking at making industry shifts later in life, is that we have this idea in our mind from what we hear from other people or what we see on TV of what this career or this industry it may be all about, but most of the time there's probably much more to it. And so that's something, I kind of recommend, especially to younger people, is go volunteer in the industry. Go be an intern. Like you said, even if it's just mundane jobs, just doing copy, if you just hang around, you will see kind of the interaction of that position, of that company, of that industry, to see if it's something that really does interest you, because a lot of times it's not always as it appears.
Absolutely. I tell people 4 things to do in the book if they think they're interested in their career and they have no experience. Entry-level jobs to get your foot in the door to see if you like it. Volunteer, like you said, either at the organization. Guess what? People like free labor. And if you start hanging around people and networking with people, soon you're going to be able to find yourself in a volunteer spot.
Right.
Internships, if you're in college, vital. I don't care if you want to do the job or not. It gets you to that experience to see if it's something you really want to do. And then find a mentor in that industry.
Yes.
That's so key. And, LinkedIn and all these sites, there's score.com, where you can find free mentors. I'm actually one of them. So, there's no excuse not to have a mentor in an industry. So if you think you want to go in that career, those are the 4 things that I recommend.
Yeah, and I apologize. I'm not being rude. I am just taking some notes here because this is, it's good information. And I think, we can kind of flip that script again, on the employer side. That is something that I always recommend, is that mentor, is that, when you have somebody new coming in, you can actually save yourself a lot of headaches if you kind of pair them up with the mentor, because just like me, I don't want to come to you and say, Zach, I'm not really sure how to start this program, or I'm doing this and it's not working. If you're my boss, there's a little hesitancy to do that. But if you're my coworker, I can lean across the cubicle and say, hey, can you give me a hand here? And it just, it takes a lot of the inhibition out of asking for help, because a lot of times I think, maybe you can agree that employees will sit there and be so frustrated until they finally get up and walk out and they don't come back.
Yeah, you have to have an open line of communication with your employees. That's what I found so important. Not just your one-on-ones that you set every week to address them, but you've got to be almost on call, if you will, with your employees. I say it's a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week job. If you're managing employees, you're always on the clock. And that's a part of leadership. And if there's something that's bothering an employee, instead of blowing it off or not addressing it, I promise you, if you blow it off and not address it, it will bubble up in a few months to a year. And that will cause turnover. So it's really important to address employees' concern and see where their development is and see what they're frustrated about it, and see if we can get on a path to help you improve that performance.
Yeah. So the other thing that that you mentioned is the I think the other thing that's important, it's the internships and gaining the experience, but it's also kind of the things that we may do outside of education or outside of our work experience. Those can also be very helpful when we go in for an interview. And I don't know, I assume that, back in the old days, it seemed like we were focused on GPA, what's your degree. They didn't really advise you to focus on what groups are you in, what are your civic activities, what social groups, or things like that. So how important is that for both young and for those in middle career that are making changes. How important is that aspect?
Well, let's talk about it from the youth side at first. So next week, I'll actually be in East Tennessee giving talks all around high schools, middle schools about this idea. So you think about it, we have been so focused as a society about GPAs and literatures and math, and all that makes sense. I get it. But I think we've done ourselves a good service in the common senses area. And what I mean by that is finances, personal finances. Most people that come out don't know what compounding interest is. And for the career side, where I'm passionate about, there's 821 careers out there in North America.
Wow.
There's not enough career development, enough going on right now in the middle school level or the high school level to identify careers. And think about it. What's your main goal of graduating high school and college? To find a career. Right. And I think we forget that behind the scenes. We're not teaching people how to do that. We're not focusing in on that.
Right.
And so get involved in your community. That's what I'm so big about. So if you're in a small town, you're in a big town, volunteer. Volunteer starts opening up channels. Guess who volunteers a lot of times? Professionals in the community.
Right.
You start networking with them, you can hone in on some of your skills, give back to your communities. Start joining these leadership organizations at student level, student government, there's so many different organizations you can join, take on leadership roles.
Right.
And then you talked about, what about the professionals that are a little bit older? That can begin right now. We're on post-pandemic, but you can begin right now. LinkedIn actually has LinkedIn gatherings scheduled in each cities. Why not hop in there virtually?
Yeah.
Do a virtual coffee date. What I tell people to do now, they're like, well, I'm immunocompromised. I don't want to get out in the situation. That's fine. Guess what? Find a mentor, find a professional to network with, do Uber Eats, schedule a lunch. Guess what? Everybody loves a free lunch.
Yeah.
Say what day works for you, send them free lunch, and have that ability to talk to people to develop your next connection, next career.
That is an awesome idea. I love that. Having a virtual meeting and you can Uber eat the other participant. I like that. Yeah, and it gives us another, if we're getting out there, it not only looks good and it's good to talk about, but the other thing that we don't talk enough about, I think, especially for young kids, and they look at me like I'm totally crazy when I say it, but I'm like, always have a 3x5 card in your pocket. And that's kind of what I keep my to-do list on, so I've always got them around. But when you meet people, write their name down, jot down something about them that because you want to develop these relationships, because not only may you be able to help them at some point in the future, they may be able to help you. And you can always think, hey, I remember I talked to this guy 3 years ago and he did this. Is he still doing that? And reach out. And the other thing I think it's probably important to say is we need to foster those relationships, not only build them, but keep them going. You can't meet somebody 3 years ago and call them up out of the blue and say, hey, I really need some help. But
great point. So 2 chapters on my book. It's like you've almost read this and studied it. So, you talk about the 3x5 card. Well, I've integrated that where everybody can do it now. Guess what everybody has now almost is a smartphone.
Right.
So, I used to keep a career journal. And I'm old school. I like paper and a pen and a to-do list. But guess what? Most people are going to their phones. So I recommend some apps in my book. One is called Day One. It is actually a calendar, a career journal calendar, where you can go into your phones. You can actually take a picture of their business card. It uploads the contact. You can have a plan, start answering questions about your strengths, your abilities, and you have this, like you said, 3 years from now, you're not going to remember that I met Roy on a networking event. But guess what? You pull up his card, you keep in touch with him. Right. Another thing you hit on, you can't just, let's say I meet you at a networking event, we talk 10 minutes, and then 5 years later, I'm like, hey, Roy, can you endorse me for that job down the street? I'd really appreciate it.
Right.
That's not how it works. You have to cultivate those relationships, and I have to show you my talents and my abilities and my strengths over time.
Right.
One way I do that is I organize it through LinkedIn, and challenge everybody to have a LinkedIn account. What I do, and this is a pain in the rear, but I do it, is I have over 3,000 connections on LinkedIn, and twice a year I touch base with them. Guess how I touch base with them? Happy birthday and happy anniversary in
Yeah.
their job
Yeah.
or congratulate them on a job. And it does, I don't give the cliches, congratulations on your work or happy birthday. I give it happy birthday. How are you doing?
Yeah.
I hope you have a great day. Personalize it, customize it, stay in touch with your connections.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome advice, and not only for the networking, but also for the solopreneurs, entrepreneurs. I've gotten a couple jobs that way, and LinkedIn is great because it prompts you whose birthday, anniversary, and so if you send them a little note, and I had one guy send him a note that said, "Hey, happy birthday! Hope you have an awesome day," and he wrote me back, and I could just tell by his message that he was kind of out of breath, like, "Oh my God, I'm so glad you reached out. I need you to do this for me." And, I got a decent sized job off of it. So, keeping those relationships fresh and reaching out, taking the time to reach out when we have a good touch point, you really can't say enough about that.
Absolutely. I mean, it's really important nowadays. And, that's just one of my niches that I do, but you can find other creative ways. When somebody posts content that you like the article, LinkedIn is based on algorithms, just like Facebook, just like social media. So the more things you like, the more you're going to pop up in people's feeds. Guess what? They see your name. And you want to make sure your comments are positive, because I've also seen it where people are like, "Oh, this is a disgusting company." That kind of negativity will ruin your reputation. And so make sure that you keep it positive. You like an article, say, "This is a fantastic read, love it on leadership." Leave it at that.
Yeah. I don't want to digress into the negative, but you brought that up, and it's interesting that you see people being outright rude or ugly to other people in a needless situation. And I always think, gosh, so how would somebody want to do business with them, whether they work for a company or whether they're in business for themselves? It's sending a message about who you are. If you're willing to pile onto somebody for some little bitty thing, are people really going to want to do business? So that's important, that reputation management.
Absolutely. Warren Buffett has a famous quote. It's kind of leaving me, but I think it says, it's like, it takes 20 years to build a reputation, but it can take 20 seconds to ruin it.
Exactly.
And it's so true. And so we have to watch what we do on a daily basis, and, just be kind, be nice, be respectful. My grandmother always taught me, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say it.
Exactly.
And so that's kind of the same thing you run LinkedIn.
Yeah. No, those are words to live by, too. We just need to be niceness, kindness goes a long way. So while we're on that LinkedIn subject, I notice nowadays there's a lot of people with the green circle around their name, open for employment. So what is your opinion on that? I've heard both. It's like, yeah, you need to take advantage of your network and advertise that you're looking or you're open. And some people are like, yeah, don't do that because it makes you look desperate. So, kind of what's your take on that?
Well, I view it from the first. I think, the minute I would become unemployed, everybody's going to know about it. Right. And I know for some people that's kind of fear and shame. And, but guess what? I've been laid off twice. So everybody's might be laid off. You never know when your job's going to end. And the pandemic's been a great call for that. I've been saying it for years. Like, you got to have a backup plan. You have to have a backup plan. And then nobody believed me because they were in secure jobs for 20 years. And guess what happened? Coronavirus. Yeah. So I'm a firm believer of using those tools on LinkedIn, that you are open for work, letting your network know. You never know how your aunt's sister's cousin's neighbor has a position, right, or they may have advice. You may want to talk to them and they're willing to answer. So I'm all about using green circles and however else you can to promote yourself, that you are available for work.
Yeah. Which is another point about being a good contact referral source. Networking is, if you see that person that you're connected with and you know somebody, we don't have to recommend and say, you know what, I know this. We can distance ourselves a little bit to say, look, here's somebody looking. I don't know them very well, but at least pass their name along and get them kind of in that process. But it's important, it's important that we give. I believe in what we put out, we usually get back. So I may not be looking for a job today, but if I can help 5 people that are, when I need that help, they will be there for me.
100%. That's so true. When I see the green on their profiles, or if I see that they've been downsized, or I see a position, I automatically think, who do I know in my network right now? And it may not pop up to you right now, but here's a good way to do it. Like the button. If you like it on LinkedIn, other people are, if they're on there looking for jobs, they're going to see it. So if I see a job in New Jersey, I'm like, nobody that I can think of right now, but maybe there's somebody out. I'm going to go ahead and like this job. It's going to put it in the news feed at least. And that's a bare minimum we could do.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's old timers like me that, I do know what a resume is and pretty much how to make that happen. But nowadays, with these, and forgive me, I can't call the name, but it's the automated system that we run that a lot of companies run your resume through to see if there's word matches, skill matches. So how important is it to tweak our resumes to give us a high ranking on those systems?
I talk about that in my book. I was in pharmaceutical sales, and I was working with my manager, a great mentor. He was a great guy, and we were talking, and he said, we were having this big, long conversation, and he said, well, is your resume updated? And I was like, well, no, I plan on staying at the company and being in this field. He said, I didn't ask you that. Is your resume updated? And I said, well, no, I just said I want to stay at the company. He said, is your resume updated? In other words, keep your resume fresh at least every half year, every 4 months. When you win something, an accomplishment, you better write that down, because guess what? Like you said, old timers, I'm considered in the middle. I forget things all the time. You think I'm going to remember a leadership award that I won 2 years ago? You keep that documentation. Write it down in your career journal. Note it on LinkedIn so you won't forget it. I think a lot of us have accomplishments throughout the years. We downgrade them because we're humans. We don't look at them. If you get an email of congratulations, print that baby out. I encourage people to keep a brag book. I'm old school. Print things off. Keep them in a book and a binder. And guess what? If you find yourself in 5 years and you're like, well, what have I accomplished at my job at IBM or Google? Your portfolio is right there in that book. And so, like you said, it's important to keep up with these type things.
Yeah, and it's important not only because you don't know when you may be searching for a new job, but also promotions. A lot of times, even if you're being promoted through large companies, you're really starting over again. They're going to want to see a resume before they start the interview process. So either way, it's not a bad idea at all.
Yeah, tweak your resume, proofread them, have a professional look over them. I can't, trust me, you can have 100 people look at your resume and you might lose a period or find a different mistake, or they might have a different suggestions. A lot of it's subjective, but I like feedback on resumes. And I think it's so important, especially, let's say you're a college student listening to this. You've got career centers at your disposal for free. Go in there, get your resume tuned up, and they're certified coaches, so they'll be able to help you with that.
Yeah, the other thing that kind of brings up is, we used to bullet point responsibilities that we had, which I think it's good to talk about those. But we also, if I'm not mistaken, nowadays, don't we want to be very pointed with accomplishments? I improved sales by 10%, or we cut costs by this, or really have the data and the numbers to back up whatever you're saying.
Yeah, you're so right about that. So, if you've done a project, companies like specifics. So let's say, you improve customer service. Well, that doesn't tell me a lot. Tell me how that improved the company. What did it specifically do? Well, I improved customer service in the sales department. That led to a 20% increase in retention. And that's what companies are looking for. They're not looking for, well, I helped on a marketing project. Well, how did the marketing project improve ROI for the company? Make it specific, have specific examples ready to go in your resume.
Yeah. So you talked about there's 821, I think, job classifications by the federal government. They used to have tests that you are profiles you could go out and take. Do you put much stock in those, like to maybe if let's just say if you got laid off or with this pandemic, it's a good time to maybe start over and do something different. Do you recommend those? Are they valuable?
It's first on my list
Okay.
because you have to learn more about yourself. And I don't think sometimes we spend enough time on ourselves to understand our strengths. And I hear it all the time. They say, Zach, well, I'm not good at anything. Well, I don't buy that.
Right.
I believe everybody has some innate gift or ability, but maybe we haven't found it yet. And these personality profiles, there's so many out there. But first one is DISC, and that tells your personality, who you like to work for, what kind of setting you like to work in, what other personalities you like to work with. I put tons of stock in these, and I think they're very valuable. A lot of them are free on the internet or available through an app on your phone. Why not take them to see what kind of, even one does it, it's escaping me the name of it, but it actually links your strengths to possible careers you can do. And so why not go down that road, learn more about yourself, learn about your strengths. So yes, I do put a lot of stock in these career personality profiles. Now, does that mean that they're 100% and that, but you can kind of filter through them. So I took one the other day and one of them said that I'm artistic. Well, that's just not true. I hate design. I don't like to do anything, but you know, what could that mean? That might be a marketing concept that I enjoy doing. So you kind of got to like continue to explore that, but sometimes they're not always right. But sometimes like speaking, guess what? Public presentation skills was on there. Well, that's obvious. That's something that I'm passionate about, and that's my passion. So I think they really do help you and give you kind of a direction that you need.
Okay. Yeah. So, I had a good question there, and I just totally went blank with it. Sorry about that, but yeah,
that's a typical day for me.
Well, that's the bad thing is I'm passionate about this subject so much. It's like I got 12 ideas running through my head all at one time. I guess the most controversial thing, I kind of waited till the end of the getting close to the end to bring this up, but so let's kind of touch on passion versus pay. I think I'll just speak for myself. Being younger, it's like you chase the paycheck, chase, a little more money. As you get older, it's like, it's not as important as being passionate and having that really engaged in the either the job, the company, the product, the service, whatever. And so to me, it's like if you can find, you will find happiness faster finding your passion versus just chasing that next paycheck.
Yeah, I wish we had 3 hours because, this is a big controversy. And I take it on the book. A lot of people think it's a myth that you can actually live and be happy in a job you like and make a decent income. Right. And I take on a big celebrity. Mark Cuban has some thoughts on that he doesn't agree with, and I take him on head on. And here's what I mean by passion purpose. So let's say you're listening to this. I'm not advocating you to quit your job and go start painting stumps in the backyard for a career.
Right.
I wanted to be an NBA basketball player. Well, guess what, Roy? I'm 6 feet and I was 200 pounds at the time, all fat. Yeah. So I wanted to guard Shaquille O'Neal, and I thought that was my passion in life at 15 years old. Right. That's just not reality. Now, there's hobbies that I might enjoy and be good at. But what I mean by finding your passion is simply this. You identify your strengths, your abilities, your unique gifts. You take those into the marketplace. You align it with a career that you enjoy doing. And 9 times out of 10, you'll have enough security financially to make it. Now, was everybody going to be a millionaire off that? Absolutely not. Let me give you one example, and I'll close with this. Okay. My grandmother was in the nursing home the last year of her life. And, just an amazing girl named Jenna took great care of my grandmother. An RN at the nursing home. We can look at her salary on public. She makes enough, obviously, to get by and be passionate about it. But she's never going to be probably a multimillionaire. Yeah. But when she went on vacation to Florida, I said, "How was your vacation to Florida, Jenna?" She said, "Well, I enjoyed the beach, but you know what? I really miss my patients."
Right.
And how many, you could just tell by her passion, she's living for so much more. And she's not going to be a millionaire, but maybe one day, as she moves up in her career and she starts a career development path, maybe she's a trainer at a hospital of other nurses. Right. So that's a great example of how purpose and passion can really help you have a fulfillment in life.
Yeah. Yeah, and I believe in that wholeheartedly because just like myself, I've been fortunate enough through my life to have always done work that I enjoy. So it's true what they say that if you enjoy what you do, you don't ever work a day in your life because I'm just as excited on Monday morning as I am on Friday morning. I'm not wasting my life away just thinking, oh my gosh, if I can just make it till Friday. I mean, you got to be in a position that every day is not going to be the best in the world. You know, there are good days and there are bad days no matter what we do. But if you're really doing something that you like and feel passionately about, I think you probably will have more good days than bad days.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're called unicorns now, people that say that, and because it's so rare,
Right.
You don't see them much.
Right.
And for somebody to be able to say, well, I like Monday just as much as Friday, they're like, okay, what'd you say again? So you must work, you must have off Monday and you must have to. And so they don't get that. And that's what I'm trying to spread around the world.
Yeah. Well, Zack, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be with us. Man, this is good information, and I think, we can look at both sides of this equation. There's a lot of good information in here for the job seeker, but then on the employee month side, we have to, as employers, we have to look at all of this so we can wrap it all together to make the very best hires that we can. So, before I let you go, what is a tool that you use in your daily life? And it can be work-related, personal, but a tool, a habit, some kind of a ritual that you just couldn't make it without.
I'm old school, so I still do the journal. And I have pen and a paper, and it's in my briefcase. And people think I'm absolutely crazy, but it's a calendar. And it's my career journal. And I write down everything. I write down my contacts. I write down my appointments. I lay out my day. And I also, I talk about this in the book, have goals and a vision over your life. Vision leads to goals, your tactics. And so I lay out what I want to get accomplished every day. So that night before I go to bed, people can't believe it, but I actually have a pad, and I have it here too, of things I want to get accomplished today.
Right.
And I make them stretch goals. And so if I want to accomplish, let's say, connecting with 5 people through LinkedIn, this is going to be on my list today. And so I think that's a tool. It's an old school tool, but you can use an app, like I said before. And that's really what organizes my day, gets more contacts, and helps me to accomplish each goal each day.
All right. I love it. Well, Zack, tell everybody, who you work with, how they can get a hold of you and what you can do for them. And also be sure and let them know how they can get a hold of this Don't Be a Zombie, How to Find a Career You Love, your latest book.
Yeah, the best way they can follow me is through social media. So I talked about the 3 ones, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. And it's so easy. All you have to do is type in linkedin.com, instagram.com. It's /the Zack Ballinger, THEZACK Ballinger. And you can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, whatever social media you're on. I would encourage your audience. LinkedIn is probably my most favorite because it's professional and I learn a lot from it. So connect with me on LinkedIn. Happy to accept any contacts. And then the book is on zackballinger.com. ZackBallinger.com, and they can find it on Amazon.
All right, awesome, Zack. And we'll be sure and put all that contact, link to the book, everything up on the show notes and the webpage as well. So, again, thanks a lot. This is Roy with the Business of Business podcast. Appreciate you listening. Again, you can find us at www.thebusinessofbusinesspodcast. We are also on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and Spotify, as well as we will be putting the recorded interview up on YouTube as well. So until next time, take care of yourself and take care of each other. Thanks.